Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It is January the 18th, 2021, and I'm excited. I'm excited. Today is Martin Luther King Day, y'all. And I wasn't going to do a show, but if anybody that knows me knows I love Martin Luther King. I love anything associated with MLK. And I was really praying. God, I really want to do a show, but I want you to direct me and guide me as to how I go about doing this show. And he dropped in one of my buddies from Divinity School, brother Rudy Lee Daniel III, and one of my other colleagues in the gospel, Elder Isaac White, who may be joining us in a little while. But these two individuals have a lot to offer. They're really political. They have a lot of viewpoints as it relates to the church's role in social issues, and I really wanted to chat with them to talk to them about the church's role in social issues. We know there's a lot that's been going on between January the 6th, the last 4 years of the current administration, and there's a lot of stuff that we have been witnessing on live television, on social media, and I really wanted to bring these two brothers on. The first brother that I'm going to bring on, he don't even know I'm getting ready to do this, but I just want to give y'all a snippet of how powerful this young brother is.
Watch this. Wait before you get your breakthrough. Sometimes you gotta say thank you, God. Wait before the judge bangs the gavel. If you believe whoever the Son sets free, it's free indeed. I dare you to stand on your feet right now and give God some praise.
Come on, Rudy.
You are for blessing your family.
Yes, sir.
For giving you your breakthrough.
Yes, sir.
Whoever the Son sets free.
Yes, sir.
It's free indeed.
Yes, sir.
The last time I checked, the Bible says, no eye has seen, no ear has heard, nor has it come to the heart of man. All the things that He will do for those who love the Lord. Who love the Lord. Who has faith in the Lord. Who's
Brother Rudy, man, you are a force to be reckoned with, brother. How you doing? This is Rudy Lee Daniel, brother Rudy. Thank you, man, for coming on. I appreciate you, as you already know. I love you, my brother, man. Listen, we've experienced a lot these last couple years, these last 4 years, and I think for me personally, January 6th really put the icing on the cake for me, and I'm a millennial. You're a millennial. Tell me, what was going through your mind when you saw what took place on January the 6th?
Yeah, man, I appreciate you, bro, for having me on the show today. To just chop it up as we always do. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is like a conversation that we would have after class. Welcome back from the parking lot, just being in the Mecca. You know what I'm saying? Being in Howard, but. I mean, this is nothing, different than what we have already known Trump and his policy to be about. So it was almost a sense of relief, right? Because I think we've been hypnotized with this idea that when somebody shows us themselves, we have to always, especially preachers, right, or the black church or faith leaders, we have this sense of optimism about them. Not as this always pertains to Trump, but just ideally, we think highly of people, right? We like to see the best in people. But I think what happened was this was exposed in a way in which, we were just prepared for it to just erupt. I mean, this was more of a critique on white America's relationship with white supremacy than it was, with what do black people need to do? You know what I'm saying? In other words, it was like we understood that Trump during his entire administration had it built on fear, racism, xenophobia, homophobia, sexism. So this pretty much exposed itself in a way in which white America had to deal with it. The same way, and we'll get into the conversation with Dr. King, but the same way in which during the marches in Selma, and during peaceful protests, it wasn't until it went viral on a television, on a media spectrum, where white America had to wake up. Their consciousness was pricked, and they had to deal with the fact that even Republicans, bipartisan Republicans, had to deal with the fact that this man is a harm to just national security, the American democracy as a whole. So I was relieved. I'm like, yo, finally this spills out, so we can, they say it's not over till the fat lady sings. It
Yeah.
was like now the tune is singing where we're chanting the 20 to invoke the 25th Amendment and to really remove this man from the White House, altogether. So. Um, I checked in with Dean. Matter of fact, I checked in um, with with Dean Pierce, and I just wanted to make sure that she was okay. Just our people. We have loved ones in D.C. I'm currently in Baltimore, but to just make sure that the Mecca, right, the epicenter of Black pride and education, was okay, as those crazies was down there tearing stuff up and got all the way to the campus.
Now, you said something interesting earlier. You said that this is one of those times to where it was on camera. I thought about Birmingham, right?
Yeah.
I thought about when those kids were marching through Birmingham and Eugene Bull Connor loosed those water holes and loosed the dogs. And it was one of those times that was a defining moment where America was forced to kind of look in the mirror at her ugliness. And you almost could not deny America's behavior, America's temper tantrum, America's viewpoints, even though they're so skewed. And so, what I thought was very interesting, when I looked at January the 6th, it was almost like we saw the same thing, but in a modern day form. But I saw more so of a temper tantrum of white supremacy. I don't know if you heard of Dr. Greg Carr from Howard University. He loves to refer to the Republicans as now the white nationalist party, right? And so what I saw was white America having a temper tantrum because they felt as if their white supremacy and their existence was at stake, And so I said this on a radio show yesterday. I said, America, the logo for America has always been white supremacy and or whiteness, right? But if you know anything about a company, companies tend to change their logo from time to time. And so what is happening to white supremacy when they're figuring out and or finding out that the logo of America is changing from whiteness to now diversity, right? From white supremacy to now equality, right? So now there's this threat, and I think a lot of people are not realizing that and are not really paying that part a lot of attention when it comes to what we saw on national television. Anytime the vice president, they start saying hang Mike Pence, I'm like, man. And then on top of that, you turn right around and they say that it was a few days before they had a conversation, and then he turns around and says, well, now he's meeting with Trump, and then now he's not going to invoke the 25th Amendment. At what point do you say enough is enough?
Yeah, and I think that this has awakened the consciousness of white America, but the consciousness of political engagement. When you talk about Black millennials and even the Black church, because we realize, that the majority leader of the Senate, shout out to the Georgia race, but we got Mitch McConnell, who also plays an integral part in the removal of Trump, and also the bills that would benefit poor people during this pandemic. The passing of bills or stimulus rather that will give access to healthcare to during a national, international, or global pandemic to just human beings, like on the simplest level. So a lot of there's an awakening that is really being juxtaposed with what Dr. King had to endure, and the civil rights movement leaders what they really had to endure, because the purpose of this was the eruption that took place all throughout the summer. I mean, I seen a police station in flames, this summer, outside of all of the peaceful protests. going around all across the nation. But just as a foreshadowing of this transition of power, this deconstruction of white privilege that has to take place in order for us to invite what Dr. King would describe as the beloved community, right? To include those who are usually not at the table but on the menu, such as Kamala Harris, right? And so many others. Shout out to the first black senator in Georgia, Reverend Dr. Raphael Warnock. Shout out to him. But even the black women
Stacey
such as Stacey
Abrams.
Abrams
Yeah.
organizing. So this is all a combination of what they call it, the chickens coming to
Coming
roost.
home to
Or
roost.
they,
Absolutely.
hey, this is the time, man.
Absolutely. And it's very funny that you mentioned that because I feel as though when I looked at January the 6th,
Hmm.
that was one of the first things that popped up in my mind, Reverend, was the chickens coming home to roost. Right.
Hmm.
And it was amazing because I was glad that I did not really see. I probably saw probably anywhere between 1 to 7 black faces that were Trump supporters and engaged. But I was so glad that I did not see Black Lives Matter or anybody
Hmm.
black who took it upon themselves to go down there and to fight that fight. Because what I said to myself, I don't know about you, but I said this is not even our fight. Right. This is not even our fight. What I felt like it was white on white crime for real, in my opinion. It was white on white crime. And you honestly, you know what I felt like when I looked at January the 6th, what I saw was those white kids that you see in the mall acting a plum fool.
Hmm.
And their parents can't control them, and they got the little leashes on them and all that kind of stuff. That's what I saw, and I thought it was very interesting. I said, if had this been us, we would never even gotten to the front door. And you said earlier that you saw police stations being burnt down, and but it's like these jokers went into the Capitol where we make our laws, right? And
Right, right.
the same individuals who said Blue Lives Matter, they love the police, don't
Mhm.
defund the police. But at that moment, you saw them antagonizing and then offending and being very aggressive towards the police. And shout out to the MPD because there's a difference. Anybody that lives in the DMV or you see, I live in DC. I grew up in DC public schools, so I've had the ability to go to the Capitol more than one occasions, and I know how difficult it is to learn
Mhm.
your way around and to learn your way around, the building. You got all these security checkpoints. But the reality is, it's like they found it very easy to get to Nancy Pelosi's office, to get to different
Mhm.
offices of different individuals. It had to be an inside job, but that's beside the point. But I was glad to see that, for the first time, I saw hypocrisy. Because how can you say you love and protect the country, but you're going to overthrow it and you're going to do things
Mhm.
to bring harm to those that literally make the laws to protect you? And
Mhm.
this question I really want to ask you, because you're a Dr. King fanatic just like I am. What
Mhm.
do you think Dr. King would say about this moment?
Wow. That's a very uh, loaded question. I think it has multiple levels, but Dr. King, what I absolutely love about him, and I spoke about it this morning on my podcast, was the fact that Dr. King's entire ministry was an ethic of love, right? So, what would Dr. King say? I mean, I think Dr. King would look at this situation and say exactly what he said in Selma, exactly what he said in, during the Montgomery bus boycott. Exactly. I think he would say something similar to, due to all of the death threats, his family. I mean, I think he got, well, this might be a little bit hyperbole. On the movie, he got stole off. The white man hit him in his face and it just turned other cheek. But to be quite honest, I mean, Dr. King says hate cannot drive out hate. Only love
Only
can do
love
that.
can do that. Yeah.
Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. So when we contextualize this to not be our fight, then we realize that Dr. King will want us to pick and choose our battles, right? There are ways in which we can operate in nonviolent, uh, resistant engagement that we've seen Black Lives Matters do all throughout the summer. Um, that equates to mobilizing the church, right? Mobilizing people uh, who examine justice and equality, who really appreciate the beloved democracy that we have when it bends towards justice. Um, Dr. Really to make change, like politically. You know what I'm saying? Like it's time for Mitch McConnell to get out of there. It's time for it's time for laws to change. I believe they have the George Floyd Policing Act still trying to pass in the Senate. It's time for the decriminalization of marijuana. Why are the majority of these prisons filled with Black and brown people, in which companies that are filled with white faces are now profitizing off of the same thing that has young black people in prisons, and so I think it's time to just mobilize these things to organize even white folk with similar visions, or just people, a diversified majority to say, yo, something needs to be done, because if not, everything is going to get burned down as this man tries to leave. So I think there's a lot on Joe Biden's shoulders, but he has a lot of support behind him. So we got to hold him accountable for what he said he's going to get done. I think your mic.
Oh, yeah. So it was very interesting when you were talking about Mitch McConnell. And one of the things that I thought was so interesting was the rhetoric that we heard from the right wing over the summer. They were law and order, hold accountable, right? Lock them up, let's not talk about the race issue or the race aspect of what's going on. And it was very interesting because this was the one time, January the 6th, where we saw on live television where white supremacy can commit a crime, but yet be given a rain check in terms of when they're going to be held accountable for what they did. And so, it's amazing to me, the double standard in our country. It's amazing to me how we're being told as African Americans, we need to calm down, we need to pipe it down. Why are we so upset? Why are we so frustrated? When in actuality, since 1619, when the first, African slaves were brought here, we have not been treated fairly. We have not been treated justly. And I'm gonna tell you something else, and I'm gonna go out on a limb and say this. You talked about laws being changed, and it's amazing how Republicans, they love to say they believe in smaller government. They don't believe in doing a lot of social programs and things of that nature. In all honesty, in my humble opinion, y'all Bama's owe us. You know what I'm saying? We can't really talk about reparations. We can't really get reparations. So those social services programs, that's part of the reparations y'all owe us, right? Right? Fair insurance, that's part of the reparations y'all owe us. Food stamps and things of that nature where people need food to eat, y'all owe us that. That's the least y'all can do. So, and it's amazing too, because they talk about different things. They talk about, I think about the last 4 years, the whole thing around the border, Trump wanted the borders and things of that nature. I feel as though, and you can tell me how you feel about this, can't no Caucasian or white person tell me anything about closing up borders when there were no borders closing y'all in from coming in here back, in 1619 when y'all took this land, right? So you should, your offspring, this generation of racists, y'all should not be talking about, closing any borders of anything. But I don't know, but I don't know. What do you see when you hear about that?
Absolutely. I think you're onto something. The colonization of indigenous people have been in the fabric of, the inception of America. So this idea that one could, define someone's entrance or exit into a land that they themselves are immigrants of is just, the white privilege that exists in the fabric of this nation. So it's just despicable, man, and it's getting exposed. This is almost like the not almost. This is the going out of what is it? Going out of style sale. This is the you talk about Black Friday. I mean, this is the last call for all races at the bar of insanity. It's like, you drink till you full, but you're gonna have to start answering to the same legislation, the same accountability that on the other side you will want to prosecute and you will want to enforce law and order against. So um, when I think about the argument of Blue Lives Matter, right, and to counter, Black Lives Matter, the Black Lives Matter movement, which is really, a movement about pro-life, pro dignity, just pro humanity, right? It's like Black lives does matter. It doesn't mean that white lives does not matter, but they somehow threw blue lives in there, right? Because there's this resistance that Black people want to live when they encounter the police, right? So to live when you encounter police is not anti-police, but it's just pro, Black human life. Um, January 6th exposed that this argument was null and void because even they became not pro life or pro democracy. Um, they weren't even pro police, right? Because I've seen police officers getting jacked up and everything, but all they was doing was it exposed themselves. You spoke to the hypocrisy, holding on to a dying white supremacist, neo-Naziist ideology that is just a domestic terrorist threat to the entire nation. And so I think Dr. King would really want us to just like stay organized, man, and to continue to do what we've been doing. I mean, preaching the gospel and also being actively engaged politically. I think that's the duality that the church was built on, to mobilize people to improve the quality of their lives, economically, socially, spiritually, physically, being fit, and also politically, man, like making sure that we have people in office that represent our beliefs, our values. And, I think America has had a nightmare that we have never experienced before with a president that really has been impeached twice, the first time in the history of the nation, right? So we have to heal from this. How do we heal? We gotta just go back to the basics. We gotta build our way out of this. You know what I'm saying? Because that's really what a foundation of. That's really what a foundation is. We gotta find a way to build our communities back. So to start with a bill, right, such as HR 40, which organizes a committee to do research on speculative reparations for descendants of African slaves, right? So, or to look at our local representatives in the eye, right? People who we can really, make a couple phone calls or go up to their office and really touch, right? Whether it's the mayor, our city council representatives, whether it is our state representatives, like looking at that, right, from a perspective. So I know you in DC, but like for other people who are in states, collectively, it's like these are the people who have more impact than Mitch McConnell. But when it's time to really get him out of Mitch McConnell out of there, we got to do it with strategy. We got to do it with force. That's the fight. That's the playing field that we have to win on.
We talked about Dr. King, and I'm getting ready to shift a little bit to really what I'm really want to talk about. Dr. King, when he was, 12 years, he did a lot, all of his work for 12 years. 12 years he went from Montgomery MIA, Montgomery Improvement Association, all the way to Memphis, right? 12 years he's been to Selma, he's been to Montgomery, he's been to Memphis, he's been to Chicago, he's spent time in Chicago. But he didn't really do a lot of work in ATL in Atlanta, where he's from, right? I don't know. A lot of people don't really know too much about that. But he didn't spend a lot of time because, of course, his dad was a part of the, elite there, and they kind of gave him a lot of hell. If I could use that, saying, "Hey, you can do all that, but don't bring that stuff here to ATL. Don't bring it to Atlanta." Right? And I'm pretty sure there were a great handful of individuals who looked at him sideways because he got involved in civil rights, borderline politics. And I would say he was involved in politics because it was because of King in the movement that back to back we got 64 and 65, the Civil Rights and Voting Rights Act back to back. You know what I'm saying? So he was involved definitely in politics. And so I'm pretty sure that he had some commentary from individuals who scolded him for being involved in politics. You're supposed to be a preacher. You ain't supposed to be dabbling and all this kind of stuff. Right? And so that's what kind of ended his life too, because he went from civil rights on a local and a national level to now he's dipping and dabbling into foreign affairs like Vietnam, right? And so I see it a lot too in 2021, in our time now, to where there are some preachers who don't believe that preachers should be involved in politics, right? And millennials, we're very involved with social media, social issues, and things that's going on. And I find a lot of times we do get a lot of flack from those that are older than us that say we need to be focused on one thing. It's only in the black community to where you can be a jack of all trades and a master at nothing, right? And so what role do we, now this is a kind of a twofold question. What role does millennials have and what's going on, and what role does the church have? Because you can't really use them interchangeably, because millennials are one thing, but then you talk about the church. So what role does millennials have, and then what role does the church have?
Yeah. And I appreciate that question, man, because as millennials are a lot of times they're being, millennials aren't as engaged as the church should prioritize them. And this is kind of been my critique all the way, through divinity school, just my bias being a millennial. But the congregation I serve in now is just full of baby boomers, right? And I think the main friction just comes upon ageism, not from this divisive space of the ability to get it done, but the roles, right? The roles of leveraging the wisdom of somebody who's done it before with the energy of somebody who can get it done right now, who wants to take action and ambition, right? So I think the role of the church is to really, the role of the church is what it's always been, right? To commission really people to save souls and to foster, healthy relationships, holistic salvation, with believers. But I think in doing that, millennials have a unique calling to leverage some of these 21st century platforms, technology. We've organized protests, at the click of a button, compared to what they had to do in the 60s. We've set up meetings, such as this, right, with a couple, texts, or shooting somebody a DM, and this speaks volumes. It can go and reach millions of people, man. So I think millennials have to begin to really utilize these platforms the way that you're doing with your show, your podcast, with YouTube channel, with your ministry. Like we're just not, we can't be boxed in to think we can only just be pulpit preachers, right? I think that's the death of a millennial preacher who only confines his gift to the pulpit, right? We got to redefine church. Like, look at the pandemic. Like, we're forced to speed up 10 years in advance. So if you don't have a digital presence, or if you don't have any tentacles in the community, if you have not decided to give food out to those who are suffering from hunger at rates unlike anything we've ever experienced, if you don't have any access to provide or to connect people to this job, right, outside of just like Sunday service. Millennials.
You know,
I think we got a little disconnected.
oh yeah, you back. I got you back. I got you back. You know, one of the things that I thought was very interesting
Okay.
was a lot of churches who have shunned social media now need social media to be relevant and still
Yeah.
exist because of the pandemic. And some churches,
That didn't even have a website.
yeah. It was some churches that didn't even have a website. And I was looking at it this way: we have social media. It's amazing because our generation, and even just the time that we're living in, we have access to social media, YouTube, to be able to watch a sermon at the click of a button on just a touch of an iPhone or what have you, or Android. But we still struggle with coming together. I look at back in, what was it, 1955.
Yeah.
Dr. King was in Montgomery, Alabama. The MIA, Montgomery Improvement Association, the bus boycott, when that kicked off,
Right.
they successfully held a bus boycott for a little over a year. Didn't have an iPhone, didn't have an Android, didn't have Instagram. All they did to kick it off was stand on the corner and pass out little pamphlets, little letters, pieces of papers that said, "Don't ride the bus in Montgomery."
Yeah.
And just that alone, they met on a consistent weekly basis, continued to strategize and to plan to figure out how they wanted this to be successful, right? And they were successful. And then what ended up happening was, while they were in court, they got a notice, from Supreme Court saying that what was happening was unjust and the law was changed, And so here we are in 2021, in which we have all of this stuff, all of these resources, but we still struggle. And I wonder as to why we still struggle. Like, there's no excuse as to why we can't meet. There's no excuse as to why we can't come together and have a legitimate conversation and create our own platforms, And so, and that was really, when I thought about that, that was really the Holy Ghost convicting me this morning. I was like, well, I know it's late. I'm not Roland Martin. I'm not, CNN. And he was like, so what? You got your own platform. You got your own resources, and you have the ability to put it up and people can watch it days later because it's still going to have that lasting effect, And so you still have a responsibility as a millennial to get this out there, to connect with people, to talk to people that's out there actually doing the work and putting away and make sure people know who they are and put them in front of people so that they can link up, and see this, like what you're doing, Rudy, that's ministry, right? And so money will follow ministry anywhere, anytime, any day when it's truly legit and authentic. And so what I believe is, if you want something to last, right, people are going to sow into something that they believe in, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're giving a message, if you're doing something that's really empowering the people and really giving the people something, to where they can hold on to and apply it to their lives, people are going to give. You ain't got to beg nobody to give, And so, and this is why I'm like, it's great that, yes, I'm a preacher. I can hoop and holler and dance with the best of them. I swear to God, I can. But at the end of the day, I also have a responsibility outside of the pulpit to make sure, to make sure that I give people the information, but at the same time, let's have real dialogues and real conversations about the stuff that we believe. Because in all honesty, we may all look the same in color and in melanin, but a lot of us don't believe the same stuff, and that's okay.
Right.
And we need to be able to, and see, that's part of the problem is we go at each other in front of white America and white supremacy. There needs to be a time to where we close the door and we hash out our problems amongst ourselves and say, I got beef with you, here's why. But at the same time, there's a bigger goal and a bigger agenda. And see, that's part of the problem as to why we probably can't even, do the things that we really need to be doing to get the results that we really need to get, is because we got too many problems with ourselves. And another problem is, and we can dive into this, everybody wants to be the leader. Everybody wants to be the front man. Everybody wants to be in front and get all the attention, right? And so when you got the SCLC, this MLK Day, the SCLC, King was very secure in his place and his role in SCLC, to the point to where if you talk to folk like Andy Young, Dorothy Cotton, Diane Nash, all of them, they would tell you there's been plenty of meetings at SCLC where majority of the time they were arguing with themselves. Jesse Jackson, all of them, they got different agendas, different outviews and looks about it. And and King would let them hash it out and talk and argue amongst themselves. But then when he talked, everybody got quiet and heard what he had to say and respected him because they knew his place. But at the same time, he gave them that room to be able to hash out and get stuff off their chest. And so, but that happened behind closed doors amongst themselves, and I feel like we need to have that same kind of space and forum. Like yes, this is a show and everybody can see it. But if you disagree, tell me you disagree. I ain't scared for you to come on my show and tell me you disagree. Say that, and let's hash it out, and let's come to an understanding, so that when we go before Congress and before people who have the ability to change legislation, right, we can show ourselves on the same page on one accord. You know what I'm saying? So I mean that's how I look at it.
Yeah, man. It's funny that you mentioned. I mean, you mentioned a lot, right? But to understand King's role with the Southern Leadership Conference, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, like he was thrusted into that. Like this was something that is one thing I would be skeptical of somebody who runs to the front and say, "I'll be the leader. I'll be the leader." King was a young preacher, Morehouse grad. At 16, son of a preacher. He's a preacher's kid, stone cold. He gets, was it Ebenezer in Atlanta, and he is cool. He is just cool just being a preacher. But they selected King, the community selected King for him to be the voice. And sometimes being the voice don't always means that you're the mastermind. I shout out Dr. Benjamin Elijah Mays, right? The architect of the civil rights movement. When you talk about the brainchild, right? The mentor of the mentee, right? Dr. King's, the person who did Dr. King's eulogy, right? His mentor, the president of Morehouse. This is Dr. Benjamin Elijah Mays. Dr. King had a whole crew. He had a whole support system, right? But at the end of the day, he was a man who was put in a position where, based on his education, his background, he was an author. He was chosen to be the prophetic mouthpiece, and I think we have difficulty with that in this day and age because our movement is so decentralized, right? I don't think we can attack this type of problem with one set leader, with one organization, pushing. We have different pockets where they can't even pinpoint where we're coming, right? Because Dr. King was martyred. Malcolm X was martyred. These guys were picked off. We can even talk about the Panthers, right? And how they were just picked off. But now I think we're so decentralized that if we are on the same page and on one accord with the same message, it could come from anybody, and it's going to hit with force because of the repetitive nature of it.
See, here's the deal. Here's the thing. Along with a message, we have to have an agenda.
Yeah.
We can have a message. It's good to talk right. It's good to talk loud. But what's your agenda? Follow me where I'm going with this.
Yeah. No, you're right. I think when it comes to the agenda, and this is actually what I love talking about, like when we get down to the policy and the legislative agenda, I think we have to be cognizant that the power stays with the people, right? Because one thing that does happen to revolutionaries is that now once the power has been flipped and you're in power, you become drunk off of it the same way as those who you want to out of power, right? So it's important for us to have community meetings, to have the community in which we serve to set the agenda, right? Because I can inform the community, right? I can talk about the HR 40 bill. I can talk about bills to decriminalize marijuana. I can talk about bills of of criminal justice reform. Bills that would give money to black entrepreneurs, um, to cancel student debt, because we understand how that affects home ownership, particularly with the black community who has been redlined and there's still some racist covenants where we still can't live in certain communities, right? I can set an agenda to expose these things, but unless we first educate the people, right, that these things exist, we can't fully get our healing, right? So I think that institutions such as Howard has really prepared us for activism and ministry. Our HBCUs, I think it first starts with education, bro. It's like
Yeah.
nobody wants. Don't get it twisted. Dr. King had a PhD from Boston University, right? Dr. King was well educated. Dr. King came from privilege. He had a father and two parents, part of Greek letter organization, two parent household. He was living. They say he used to talk to Howard Thurman in his living room, like it was just like just having a random dinner. All of these guys. I mean, Du Bois, on in his latter age, but Dr. King had access to this. Like he was pretty much made to be in a place to shift the consciousness of America. And I think now we have so many dynamic speakers and leaders and so many platforms that there's a whole community on the internet that allows us to access information and to critique information and to find truth, that we're not just listening to just one person, so that if they get clipped, God forbid, the mission stops with them. So everybody has to engage, but it starts first with education. Like we got to inform ourselves about our rights. We got to know our rights. We got to know, especially black people, know your rights when you engage the police. We got to know the rules of the board of the game that we're playing. It's like I got a daughter that's 2, and I'm teaching her chess at 2 years old. But the first thing to the game is chess. It's understanding the players that's on the board. You got to know the rules, and you got to know what everybody does, right? So we just got to educate ourselves. Since we don't own guns. I mean, we don't manufacture guns. We don't manufacture our own food. If we want to have a bloody revolt in America, if we want to incite a race riot, we will lose, right? Because this is not in our nature. This is not even what we do. But if we want to fight the way that Dr. King fought, right? If we want real sustainable systemic change, we got to engage into this political system, understand the rules, right? And we got to position people to be in position that really represent our ideas, right? We got to set the agenda, but that agenda setting has to be a community effort, because the power is truly with the people.
Right. And so before we go, I want you to tell the people. I want you to tell the people about your organization. You have an organization.
Yeah.
It's called the Young Kings Leadership Academy. So tell the people about your organization. Tell them what you do, how to find you, and why you're doing it. I'm gonna put all your handles up here so people can find you and and hook up with you and to work with you.
Yeah, so Young Kings Leadership Academy is an organization that provides academic resources for just young black kings. We primarily deal with middle school students, but the goal is to provide a vision and trajectory that is larger than themselves, to really grow into the crowns that God has placed above them, right? We all need help. We all need uplift. So me and my wife, we prayed on it and we created an organization that primarily focuses on underserved young Black males. This During this pandemic, we was able to pass out over 50 laptops. As we know that there's a technological deficit in some of our inner cities. We're dealing with Baltimore City primarily, over there at City Springs. If you know about Baltimore, it's right across the street from Perkins Homes Projects, right? And these guys go through this rigid process, if you will, of just self-knowledge and education with the seven pillars of excellence, right? Learning how to read, write, travel, um, you name it. I mean, we're cultivating the next generation of leaders. So if there's any way that you could, support, we're doing a book giveaway. We're accepting applications for mentors, peer-to-peer mentors. What we do is, like I have a young boy. He is the president of the SGA, the Student Government Association at the school. Right, and I have a friend who just finished law school. So periodically they may send an email. They may just, tap in with him, his family, just to make sure that they're on the right path, send words of encouragement. But, during programming, we have them really working on their soft skills. We provide internships. We take them to go see the African American History Museum in DC. We really provide a holistic experience for cultivating a love for learning outside of the classroom that is very necessary for these students, particularly young Black males, to be successful in the latter stages of life.
Well, there you have it, people. That's Brother Rudy Lee Daniel. Hey, Rudy, before you go, I said I was going to do this. So I met, like I said, I met Rudy. We went to Howard together. He graduated. I went from Howard, and now I'm at Wesley Theological Seminary. But this was like, we were a lot younger. I remember, this is a little snapshot. I took this a couple years ago. We was in Dr. On's class. And look, I just want to show the people that we were some young theologians, man. We were just in amazement. And look, I'm going to try to get Dr. On here too, because Dr. On, he is a very phenomenal individual. And so he always had me, just baffled and just thinking about the true authenticity of scripture and things of that nature. But I'm trying to really get some powerful people on here, man. We know people from Howard that I really want to get on this show that really have a lot of value and can really speak to our people and really talk to our people about not just where we are, but where we've been and where we are trying to go and where we need to go and how to direct ourselves to get there. And Brother Rudy, I'm going to tell you one thing. This ain't going to be the last time you on my show. I'm going to tell you that right now. I'm going to tell you that right now. Listen,
I'm there, bro. Same here, man.
Listen, we're millennials with a lot to say, with a lot on our chest. And just like I tell my boys, I got 3 boys, 6, 7, and 8. And anytime they talk, anytime they got something to say, I always tell them, say it with your chest. And so, look, this ain't gonna be the only time you're gonna be here, Brother Rudy, all the way from I'm in DC Waldorf area, brother. I love you. Thank you so much. I know it was last minute. I know you got a wife and baby girl, and kids that you got to get to. But listen, I appreciate you, love you dearly. Thank you at the last minute for hopping on when I was like, hey, I just want to have a show today just because I feel like doing one. And you hopped on with me, and shout out to Brother Isaac. Elder Isaac White, he tried to get on, but he was having some technical issues. We're going to get him on next time. And we're going to wrap it up, chop it up, and talk. But once again, people, feel free to follow me. Follow me on Twitter right there at Deontay J. Carroll. Also, you can follow me on Facebook at Deontay J. Carroll Sr. I'm also, this video that we just recorded, I'm going to put it on YouTube. And so here's my YouTube channel at Deontay Carroll, no apostrophe, space. I'm on Instagram. I'm everywhere at Deontay Carroll. And so this is a special MLK edition. Brother Rudy, stay on. I'm gonna talk to you after I close the show out. So once again, happy MLK Day, everybody. I love you. Be safe. Remember the true meaning of MLK Day. Be careful. Be safe. Be still in the pandemic. You may be over the pandemic, but the pandemic ain't over you. So until next time, I'm Deontay. And until next time, y'all, please do me a favor and turn up the volume. All right.